So 2 weeks ago, when we had our last main episode and I did my little review of Black Widow, I said you should go see it that weekend and then we'd do a podcast covering our thoughts, because I saw it first day, I was recording straight away, so I didn't want to put any spoilers in, certainly for you and people listening as well. You can talk, by the way.
I know, I'm just nodding away. I'm just nodding.
Yeah, not an audio.
I thought you were like doing a monologue. So 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
And then you just like go into it.
We've had a few things going on.
A lot of things, yeah.
But you have now gone to see Black Widow.
Yes, I went yesterday.
It has been 24 hours since you left the cinema, and you have been sat there going, I really want to talk to you about it. We had friends over last night who asked you about it, and you were like, we can't, we need to do it for the podcast.
And they just, I think, rolled their eyes because they were like,
Yes.
what do you mean you can't talk about it? What do you mean you have to save it for the podcast? But I'm like, it's an integral part of the podcasting that I don't now say to you, our friends, everything I think about it. I've got to save it for this moment.
So, just a reminder of what I said at the time. I wasn't looking forward to the specific film. I was really looking forward to the MCU coming back, but I think it really charmed me. The first two acts I really enjoyed. I think it lost a bit in the third act. It just turned a little bit Marvel, a little bit MCU.
You're doing a funny thing with your hands there, a little bit Marvel.
Yeah, absolutely. It turned into machines crashing into other machines at points. But overall, I thought it was like a good 4-star film. But I thought it was very Bourne-esque, certainly in the early acts. And I really thought that you would warm to it. You've been dying to tell me what you thought.
Yes. So I sat in the cinema by myself. I sat towards the front of the cinema, which we never do when we go together. You always make us sit at the back seats, which I never used to do because the back seats was where all the naughty kids used to sit. But I took full advantage of the fact that I was on my Todd, and I was like, I can sit anywhere I like right next to the screen. Funnily enough, I then realised I was sitting too close to the screen.
I can say it's an IMAX screen. Yeah. Like, are you... Do you understand the concept of sitting too close?
You know when you're like, I'm going to sit where I like. This real indignant thing of, I can sit back at the front where I used to go. And I also like sitting closer to the front because then I can't see the people in front of me. I like being the one closest to the screen so that everyone behind me just melts away. Does that make sense? Like, because I'm like hypervigilant in terms of sensory, I know where everyone is in the cinema, and I'm always waiting for someone to just come and sit right next to me. And also, if someone sits behind me and a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right, I can hear them breathing. So, you know, all of those things.
I would hope so.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? I like the idea that I'm in the cinema by myself, so I like to pretend that.
You were very aware sensory-wise of everything around you.
That's right.
Which is why sitting at the front row of IMAX screen might not be my choice
but
for you.
But actually, because it's more about the other people around me, so if I can sort of pretend that those other people aren't there, which is easier when you can't see them, but also I can, so I would say mind meld, but that's like Star Trek, and it makes me sound like a bit weird, but I can, if the screen is enveloping me, it's much easier for me to cut out other things. So when we're sitting at the back, I also have a complete awareness of the fire escape, so the exit sign.
Yeah.
Which is usually green. I know that's the...
Thanks for that.
I know that's... And it's always there. So it's always there, part of my cinema experience. I also can see people going to the toilet and coming back, and I get really distracted by things like that. Anyway...
This is why I largely go to the cinema by myself, to anyone listening.
I know. So I sat where I wanted to sit, but I did feel like I was a little bit too far forward. I was in row C, for anyone who has an interest in where I sat, which is probably no one. D or E, I think, would have been better, but there were people in those rows. So I went into the cinema thinking, I've got some time off, I've got like a day off, and really what maybe I'd want to be doing is like going for a long walk or something like that. And I did have that sort of moment of, do I really want to go and sit for 2.5 hours plus, because once the trailers come on, once the ads come on, you need to add that time in, especially because, you know, time is precious at the moment. You want to be out doing different things.
I know, I'm still waiting to find out what you thought of the film. And
no, sorry, I'm like building a picture that no one cares about, but anyway, I'm going to continue. And I sat there and I sort of had that moment of, I don't really want to watch this film. I probably should be outside getting some fresh air. And that's sort of the level I went into, but at least I'm sitting. forward, but maybe a bit too forward. So I had all of that going on. I also realised that I hadn't got the toilet before I'd gone into the cinema as well, so I thought, oh no, this is like a really long film and I'm going to get like really uncomfortable. Anyway, trailers come on, and I think we should talk about trailers at the end of this review because there's some interesting ones I want us to speak to you about because they're MCU trailers and Marvel things that I didn't really know anything about. So let's talk about that afterwards. Ads come on, up it comes, and on goes the film. And I loved it.
Yay!
I loved it. And I'm in total agreement with you, funnily enough, because that doesn't really happen very often.
No.
I would give this, I'm going to come right out with it at the beginning, I would also give it 4 stars. I also think the first 2 acts really rocketed away. I was so interested in them. It made me much more interested in the Black Widow character than I have ever been before. Third act, you're right, I think there were some major plot holes. I think there were some major issues with some characters. But I really liked it. This is probably one of my favourite Marvel movies, and I know that doesn't really mean much coming from me because I've probably watched each of them once. We've been going through our CDs, DVDs and Blu-ray collection, haven't we, recently?
Yeah.
And I've noticed that we've got there's Avengers Endgame on Blu-ray. I'm pointing, that's really helpful for the podcast. But in one of the drawers, I don't even think it's been opened properly. Or if it has, it's like been opened once.
No, it has, because you watched it for the first time on Blu-ray because you didn't go to the cinema to watch it.
That makes sense then. But I'd forgotten about it and it's gone in a cupboard. We've also got like Avengers Assemble. That'll be an older version, isn't it? Because they've changed the titles now on DVD. Is that right?
No, not at all.
No? Haven't they called it something different now?
No, so in America it was Marvel's Avengers. In America it was Avengers Assemble. In the UK it was called Marvel's Avengers.
Oh, right, okay. Well, anyway, we've got the DVD through that, so we've got various bits and pieces throughout the house. But I'm not someone who just puts them on over and over again. I'm not someone that's interested in the lore. I will watch them, I'll think, oh, that's a nice film. But I tend to feel for me, they're a bit throwaway. I watch them, I go, meh, and I don't really understand how they all melt into each other. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't get where one starts and when one ends. And if you were saying...
When you come in and there's trailers, that's the start. And when there's big, long lines of text coming and then a little hidden bit at the end, that's the way it ends.
You know exactly what I mean. Like, when people say, oh, Civil War's wonderful, and I'm like, don't really remember what happened in Civil War. I don't know the difference. I mean, I have to really work on, like, Infinity War and Endgame, which way around they are, and also have no idea what happened in either of them. However, I do know that, and I don't think I need to put a spoiler alert on this for people who are listening to Black Widow. I think it's a thing that everyone knows. I know that Black Widow dies in Endgame. That is one of the major plot points in
If you listen to a spoiler podcast for Black Widow and you require a spoiler alert for what was until recently in a re-release of Avatar, the biggest film of all time worldwide, I think they're fair enough. Yeah.
So that's really what I went in knowing. So I knew that she had gone, or, in inverted commas, we think she's gone. I hope that is a final point. I really don't like it where, as in the Fast and Furious franchise, where people don't die. That sounds sad, does it? I want people to die. But I want there to be some jeopardy. I want there to be consequences for actions.
I think, I totally agree with you. I think probably my biggest problem with film franchises is when you get a big emotional moment and then 10 minutes later it comes back to bite you, or a couple of films later, or whatever. I get the feeling that Scarlett Johansson has moved on with her career and would like new projects.
Yeah, and
the same as Robert Downey Jr., the same as Chris Evans, and that's why I think that's probably the end of the original Avengers as a team on screen. They may do some cameos in flashbacks in the future, I guess, but I would be very surprised if it then turned out that Black Widow was alive. I'd be disappointed as well.
And so that was my underlying thoughts going into this was, what is this going to add to my knowledge, to my feeling about the character, to my feeling about the MCU? I felt it was going to be something that, my thoughts were quite negative in terms of, they're cashing in, they need to do something. I know it's been some time because of the pandemic, but even with the delay in time, I just felt like, well, what was the point? What was the point in this film was really what I was thinking. But I came away with a really strong feeling that I wish this had been done years ago, because it would have given so much more heft to that character. It would have given me so much more to hang my hat on. I really felt a connection to the character after watching this film, and I understood more about the trauma and the decisions that are then made following that history that the character has.
Yeah.
I really, really wished it had come out at, maybe not at the time of Iron Man, one of those early ones, but certainly in the centre of those MCU films to give that sense of history.
I think a second phase film here would be really good. So that would be around the time of Guardians of the Galaxy. We'd had the first Avengers film. So obviously this is set at a time where she is a member of the Avengers, so that would fit, and there is flashbacks to times before, so it kind of sets the mood a lot better. I fully agree with you there. What did you make of the cast?
Okay, so this is where I get very excited. So, like, Scarlett Johansson, right? I think Scarlett Johansson is a brilliant actress. I really enjoy her in everything. I don't think there's anything I've seen her in that I haven't enjoyed. I think she's very chameleonic in that, you can watch her in something like Marriage Story, which I think I've only seen sort of half an hour of, and then for some reason went away and watched something different. I think you probably said to me, "Oh, you should really watch this film," and then I didn't.
And then you started it and gone, sod him. Yeah.
But I'm thinking all the way back to Lost in Translation, which I really loved her from that. I think she's a very compelling presence, very quiet, compelling presence, which is probably why. And I haven't seen this film, but I know she'd be brilliant in it, and a lot of people talk about it. I feel that she's quite the right actress for something like, the name's going to escape me. What's it called? The one where she's an alien. The one where she's an alien and she's going around, is it like Glasgow or something? And it's like sort of almost real life. Didn't they film it? And men come up to the car. And then she does things to them.
Yes.
What's it called? Is it In My something or other? Or...
No,
I'm going
to have to look it up.
Yeah, people are going to be screaming.
Because I've seen it. And
it's always on someone's list, isn't it? It's always like, top 20 films of blah, blah, blah.
I've got issues with that film. I don't necessarily trust them when they say, "Oh, it was all or part of it was
real life."
I kind of look at it and go, "Okay, if you say so, mate." Under the Skin.
That's it. So I can understand, having not seen it, but I can understand why she would be the right person for that, because she really draws you to her. You know, there's so much going on under the surface. I feel there's a lot that the brain and the eyes, you can feel it's really
And my
cerebral.
problems with the film are 100% not her. I thought it was a phenomenal film. I just struggle to believe that part of what they say is true.
Okay. So I've sort of set her to one side almost, because we've known her for a long time and we know that she's brilliant. So I sort of put her to one side. So with the new people, let's go Rachel Weisz first, because I love Rachel Weisz. I mean, God, that woman's beautiful. She's like...
I don't know her from that much,
Really? Oh, she's such a phenomenal actress as well. I kind of felt that... So you get to know her at the beginning, don't you, in the sort of 1995 flashback, where she's playing the mother, so the all-American mother with David Harbour's...
Should we say spoilers from now on?
We're putting spoiler...
Okay.
I'm going to put spoiler all over this in the title, so yeah, everyone's going to know it's spoiler.
I would say... Obviously, that reminded me completely of The Americans, which is a TV programme which I've just finished the final series of. I love... If anyone's listening to this and is looking for a new TV show, The Americans, I believe it's all on Disney Plus now. It's such a good show. Lose yourself in 5 seasons of awesomeness.
It did me as well. I remember when I was watching that first bit, that 1995 in Ohio, I remember thinking, oh, Mark is going to totally talk about The Americans with this.
Yeah.
So that's totally what it was. And I thought she played a pretty brilliant role there. I thought she had this real... this sort of underlying... She did so well in this underlying sense of evil to her.
You never know which way she's going to go.
I hadn't got a clue which way she was going to go. That bit with the pig, I got very, very distressed when you're getting towards the third act.
Yes.
And she's essentially torturing this pig. I couldn't concentrate on what she was saying because I was so distressed about what was happening with the animal.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, and that I think shows you that, you know, she's almost like dead behind the eyes when she's doing it, and you really don't know which way she's going to go. I've got an issue with that whole plot line, but we'll come back to that later.
Okay.
So I thought she was great. Florence Pugh, we've talked about at length on this podcast.
I have, off the podcast as well.
We both absolutely love Florence Pugh. We think she is amazing. I loved her in not just the films that we know her from, like Falling. It's The Falling, isn't it? Carol Morley's The Falling.
Yes.
Which we saw in when she was very young. She's been in Lady Macbeth. She's been in the wrestling, the one with the wrestling that we watched.
Oh God, I forgot she was in that.
Yes.
Yeah. Fighting with My Family.
That's it.
You Saw Little Drummer Girl, which is something I started watching but just couldn't get into.
That too, and I loved it. I think if, you know, people talk about it in the films, but that TV show was just I really, really loved it, and I remember thinking, she is a star. She's, you know, you talk about Scarlett Johansson being compelling. This is Florence Pugh's film.
Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
And I know people have said that on all the other podcasts, and I know I'm not coming up with anything new, but she is completely, I hear this term MVP.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what I was thinking, Florence Pugh, MVP.
Have you seen Little Women?
No, I haven't.
I mean, again, that is her.
Yeah.
Because she plays Amy, which obviously is a big part in Little Women. He says, not really knowing anything.
Are you referencing
beyond...
Friends? Because they talk about Little Women and the plot line of Little Women and Friends.
Oh, I've never really equated the film Little Women with that plot
Joey
line.
reads Friends.
Yeah.
Joey reads Friends.
Joey reads.
Yeah, Little Women. So yeah, I loved her. I loved that she got to do all the action. I thought she played the role of a annoying little sister really, really well.
Well, again, it's Amy from Little Women, isn't it? But I think her fighting works. I think the accent in the wrong hands could be problematic, but I never felt... In fact, I kind of stopped at certain points and went, why is this working? But it just does. And it's a little bit Alexei Smirnoff, but yeah, it works.
I think for her, everything that she does, I just feel it's believable.
Yeah.
I feel it's grounded in reality. And whilst I know I'm watching Florence Pugh and Scarlett Johansson having a scene, and part of my brain is going, oh, that must have been really fun for them both to do, you know, when they're sitting... it's a place where, is there a car being fixed or something, and they're stopping for something to eat, and then they pinch the car later on, and they've worked out where he's kept the keys, and they're using all their super spy powers. There was a bit there where I was thinking, oh, that must have been really good fun. You feel like they're getting on.
Yeah.
And also that, you know, Scarlett Johansson is the, don't mean to say this in terms of age, but elder stateswoman.
Yes.
That she is the person who's had the longer career out of the two of them. And you do really get that sense of that dynamic between the two. So I thought she was brilliant. I would watch her in anything, to be quite honest. I think she's just amazing. And finally... Are you ready?
Oh, God.
I've saved him till the end because it's not David Harbour. He's David Harbour.
So last night when we had some friends round, Elaine made this joke and said, I'm saving that for the podcast. So I rolled my eyes then. I'm rolling my eyes even more, having heard it about 4 times now.
I used it again this morning when we went for breakfast.
Yes, I know.
I'm very excited. When I thought of it, I just got too excited and I should have saved it for now. But anyway.
So you have a little crush on David Harbour, don't you?
I love David Harbour. I just think he's amazing. I love him from Stranger Things. I love because he's the sheriff in Stranger Things. And also, like, for me, he's like completely my type. Not something that I think we really need to go on in the podcast, but he's a broad man that likes to have some food. Can we put it that way? You know, and he's strong, but also he might have trouble fitting into some clothes. Something that I find, you know, day to day.
I'll be honest, I'm a little bit worried where this is going. I feel...
And he's got a lovely beard, although I did feel the beard in this film went a bit too far for my liking. It went a little bit sort of, you know, Rasputin, rather than sort of a more sort of like Thor-esque.
I'll endeavour to, you know, keep mine trimmed for you then if this is where it's going.
But I think he's very lovable, and I always get the sense that he's just having a really good time. You know when he plays Hopper in Stranger Things, and he's got all these kids running around him, he's hanging out with Winona Ryder, and he's just got really good lines, and he's being the action hero, but also like a bit of a slobby sort of, he's got a lot of he's also he's carrying a lot of trauma as well. So he's got this lovely backstory. So he just ticks all the boxes for me. And I really, really enjoyed him in this. I was a bit worried because you had said in our spoiler-free thing that he doesn't really have... I don't think you said he didn't have much to do, but it was like he pops up a couple of times. And I thought that he was literally just going to be there at the beginning being like the all-American dad, and then maybe at the end or at the middle. He got much more to do than I was led to believe.
Okay, sorry for misinforming
No, but that was great.
you. Yeah.
That was great.
No, what I mean is he doesn't have a lot of... He doesn't drive the plot in many ways.
No.
He is the comic relief of the film. And the film's narrative is driven by this 2/3 female leads in this. He is there to make a funny line, drag on some latex costume, stop smiling.
Ding ding.
And yet, just get the laughs from the audience and, play to the back row. Because that's exactly what he's doing as well.
I really enjoyed his obsession with Captain America.
Yes.
And, even in the prison, he's doing that thing in the prison where he's doing, what's it called with the hand, where you're, what's
Are you
that
wrestling
called?
with the arms?
I'm wrestling with my arms now, but yeah, what's it called when you're praying that?
It's arm
Stop looking
wrestling.
at me, it's
Gave you a hint there. And
I'm just like, wrestling with the arms, that's a really good way of putting it, yeah. Yeah, arm wrestling with the other people in the prison, the other convicts.
including a huge man who's in Indiana Jones 5,
Yeah,
we found out
learned
last
that
night.
last night from our friend Chris, who's well known to the podcast, who is from the IndieCast, where he does IJ in the UK. Hello, Chris. He told us that one of the guys, like the big guy at the end, that actually David Harbour sort of breaks. I know it's not really him. Don't worry before you looked at me. But makes his hand go all floppy, doesn't he? Because he breaks it with the arm wrestling. Why are you looking at me like that?
Makes his arm go all floppy.
Yeah,
Yes, he breaks his arm.
Well, its arm goes all floppy. Yeah, it does go all floppy to denote that the arm is or the hand is broken. Anyway, he's going to be in the new Indiana Jones film. It's sort of like a tribute maybe to Pat Roach, who was like the big guy in the earlier films. So we ended up looking up him last night, didn't we?
Yeah.
Because apparently he's something like 7'4" or something
7'2".
like that. Wow. And then we went into a whole spin about Andre the Giant from WWE.
And found a clip of this actor on Good Morning Britain being made to carry Joe Swash onto screen. Yeah. Do you reckon he knew what Joe Swash was before he started?
Yeah, can you imagine? So yeah, thanks Chris for that. That kept us entertained last night. But there's all of that going on with him where he's talking about. I'm back to David Harbour now. I realise I'm talking really fast as well. So we're back to David Harbour. He's talking about Captain America in there. He's making up all these things about all the... And I feel that it was made up because people were saying, hang on a minute, was that like in the 80s Captain America wasn't around there? So he's making up all these stories about how he defeated Captain America. And then when he meets Black Widow and Elena... Is Elena Florence Pugh's name? I think it is. When he meets them for the first time in 20 odd years, the first thing he wants to know is, does Captain America talk about me?
Yes.
And I think there has been some discussion, mainly from David Harbour outside of the film, to say that he would really like to see a Red Guardian versus Captain America, Russia versus the USA type film.
I bet he would.
Yeah, but yeah. I know for all the reasons. Yeah,
so would I. I'd like to be Captain America in it as well, please. Yeah.
But I think it's interesting because I think previously, we watched all those films from the 90s where Russia is the big enemy. I found myself really warming to these people who would have historically been the infiltrating America, infiltrating the anti-West, and they would have typically been set up as the inverted commas baddies. But actually, I found myself finding myself feeling very relaxed towards them and wanting them to win. So I thought that was interesting. I thought he did really well, even in the softer moments as well, where he's having discussions, particularly with Florence Pugh, when they're talking about the way that they created this family. It was a made-up construct.
Yeah.
Very different from the Americans, where the children are their biological children.
Yeah. And the children don't know what their parents do. They appear to everyone else to be travel agents. Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting. You take these children ostensibly away from their parents and you put them into this culture and then you train them to be killers. Because I felt a real sense of unease towards David Harbour's character, which is unlike me, when he essentially goes back to Russia and he gives them to Ray Winston, who we'll come on to talk about in a moment.
We've got a lot to talk about him.
So I was sort of like, oh, he doesn't look like he's feeling anything. He's so bought into this idea of, can I have my costume back? I'm the Red Guardian. I was so sick of playing this role. It was boring. These girls are going to be given powers that will promote Russia. And I thought maybe I would have liked to see a little bit more remorse or care about these girls, because later on, where you get a sense that he did have those feelings that they, singing American Pie, and I got a bit teary at that point as well, when he's having that moment with Florence Pugh. That would have paid off a lot more if we had a sense that he felt some level of regret at the time that the girls they weren't dragged away, but they were taken from the only family that they knew and put into this camp. So I would have liked to see a little bit, maybe it is there, maybe I didn't see it, or, maybe that's a character point that they chose to go for, that he was he's so bought into that role and his role within this government that it wasn't needed. But yeah, I really enjoyed everyone, bar, let's go back to him, Ray Winston. I really love Ray Winston as like a person, as like a human being. I think he seems to be like a really nice dad as well, like in real, like Jamie Winston's his daughter, and you can you get the sense that, like, wouldn't you like him to be your dad? But I
just know him as popping up at halftime on the Bet365 adverts, telling me what I can get on Harry Maguire to be the next goal scorer. And that's kind of what I've seen it. He's become a parody of himself in that state.
Why are they making him do an accent? Why? And at one point, I was thinking, you know what? This actually works quite well, because he's dipping into almost like American English, and you see him with Clinton, with other leaders around the world. In pretty bad CGI, I have to say, like, really superimposed his face over on things in the opening credits.
I really liked that though.
Yes, so did I.
I thought that was a really effective way of not having someone go, oh yes, and he is in with all the world leaders, and pan to a placing shot of like some photos on a shelf.
Agreed.
Yeah,
totally agreed. I thought it was really compelling as well. But then to go back to that, I was thinking, okay, well maybe, if he's in with Clinton, would he have this really thick Russian accent, or would he be playing a role? Like, is he like the Americans bit at the beginning in Ohio 1995? Is he got the American accent, but actually he's part of Russia? And so I tried to almost like forgive it and think, oh, it's part of the plot.
No,
it's not part of the plot, is it?
At all.
It's not part of the plot.
It goes to shit at this point, because you get this daft plot point about how they're implanted that if they get his pheromones,
that I hated that bit,
and she has to break her own nose, and so she can't now smell. She has to break a nerve, a very specific nerve, so she can't smell from now on. Is that it?
Yeah, apparently.
No, bollocks.
No, and then at the end she just sort of like takes a bit of her nose, puts it back in. Oh, look, it's fine now.
Fine, yeah.
It's fine now. I mean, she probably can't smell anymore, but our nose is fixed suddenly.
Yeah. No, I mean,
and I didn't like that end point where he's up in space. I know he's not in space, but he's above the clouds in a hidden lair.
All I thought of was the hidden island from Wolverine Origins, whatever it's called.
And the other thing I was thinking of was Austin Powers. I really felt it was very Austin Powers. He's got the big screen in front of him.
Yes.
And with his evil plan on the screen, and it can only be opened by this massive gold ring that he like swipes across some technology.
I have no recollection of that, which is, yes.
Yeah, that's like a little bit of a MacGuffin, that she has to get the ring off him, and then the ring opens up the computer, essentially.
God, yeah. Like, it's been 2 weeks, and I have edited that out of my brain, which is...
But also the fact that... Did we know this character beforehand? Because she talks about her and Clint, who it took me ages to work out who that was.
Oh, God.
But that's, Hawkeye with his what they're called, arrows.
Yes.
That's the word I'm looking for. Yeah, so bow and arrow. She's saying that they had some sort of mission, and it looked like they'd de-aged her face, because they do a melt into... I say melt a lot this podcast, weirdly. They do, like, what's it called? A fade into, like, a younger version of her face.
Yes.
A transition. Into a young version of her face, and she's watching this building blow up. She's blowing the building up with Clint, and the little girl is there, and...
I mean, that's darker than I thought it was going to go.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, at the time, obviously, later on in the film, we find out that Bond girl from Quantum of Solace survived in a fashion. But at one point, you're like, I'm seeing a young girl get blown up here.
Yeah, and was she an Avenger at that time? She can't have been, surely.
She
Avengers
was
don't kill
applying
little
to...
girls.
Well, apparently they do.
Oh.
Apparently they do.
Oh, was the thing that she had to kill him to show that
Yes, show her allegiance to the Avengers.
Very surely she could have done that a different way.
And in Endgame, or either Endgame or Avengers, Infinity War, there is a scene. It must be Endgame because there's her and Clint, and they talk about that mission in Budapest.
Oh, right.
Which they kind of look back laughingly about. But,
oh, yeah, we just killed that girl.
Killed that girl. Yeah, remember that time?
And also...
Which obviously she would know at that point the girl wasn't dead, but it still doesn't... remove
but the girl
anything.
Is completely scarred physically and mentally, and
Yes.
has been abused by her parent
Yeah.
for the rest of her life. Like,
Memories.
I found that it was just a little bit off. Wasn't it?
Budapest is a lovely country, and you can get a real good street food there. So,
yeah, well, I was thinking of you actually when it came up.
So, the train station is the train station we went to when we went on a trip to Vienna. Those courtyards which you go into, and the flats are in there. We were staying in one of those, so it really, I spent the first 5 minutes just squeeing at how excited I was to be in Budapest. 'Cause I do love that city, and I think it's amazing, but. Yeah. I going back onto the plot, I don't necessarily understand how she's got a little friend who is, I think, is he in Invisible Man? The one who gets her a helicopter.
I know him from TV, but I don't know why.
But then it turns out that Elaine also knows this guy.
Yeah, well, he says, I've got someone else in your Budapest apartment. I was thinking, that's Florence Pugh, isn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah, but
if he's the go-to guy.
But he would definitely say, it's Yelena. He's not in The Invisible Man. He's in The Handmaid's Tale. So that's where I'm getting confused.
Oh, you're getting confused.
Yeah.
I don't think he would, because surely your business runs on confidentiality. That you're not going to say, by the way, I've got this person that you might be looking for. This, but you want it to be fully private and confidential.
I'm not convinced.
Well, I am. Anyway, she goes back there anyway, she finds it. It's all fine.
They have a little ruck around the house.
Can we, just while we're talking about sort of plot issues, can we talk about the Melina plot device, which is after she's tortured the pig, which I found very upsetting, and I had to remind myself that the pig isn't really not breathing.
Yes.
She then goes to this magical cupboard where she has all of her Mission Impossible gear, and she then talks to Florence Pugh and seems to sort of... She says something like, how have you kept your heart? And she seems to have melted a little. I said, why am I saying melt so much this time? But yeah, she seems to have really come round a little bit to what Florence Pugh is saying. But then she also says, I alerted the Red Room ages ago, which I saw coming a mile off.
Yeah.
She is a baddie. She's a baddie. She's horrible to pigs. But then how does that... Can you explain this to me? How does that then work into the Mission Impossible style masks? It's not really me. Let me rip the mask off. I'm Tom Cruise. And suddenly she's okay. She wants to help with everyone. She's a goodie. Is she a baddie? Is she a goodie? I don't understand.
The way I took it was... the masks, I forgot about the masks. The masks... Did you see that they were kind of foreshadowed in the background of her Mission Impossible room? Yeah. And I was kind of like, oh God, what are they?
I didn't see them then, but later when they go back into the room to do a flashback to show you them having the conversation, you see them very prominently.
Right,
placed.
they are there from the beginning.
Okay. Well, yeah, they will be, won't they, just to say.
The way I took it was, she just says, I've alerted the Red Room, and that makes you think that she's turned into a baddie.
Oh, okay.
But I think the full conversation would be, because you need to get there we'll get them,
right? And
this is the start of her plan to sort of fool them.
I didn't get that.
I'm joining dots that the film should probably have joined for me.
Yeah.
I agree with you there.
It just the editing made it look like when they do the flashback, it just didn't match those two conversations together. Maybe if they had gone into that room together earlier and the others had gone off to do something, and then you got the flashback to show that inside that room they had that conversation before they'd even done all the other things. Because otherwise, to me, it just looked like a switcheroo. It looked like, oh, I've alerted the Red Room, which I could see coming a mile off. And then she was like, how did you keep your heart? That one conversation turned her. That's the way I was taking it. But I didn't like that at all.
I see it as she alerted the Red Room, but it was all part of a larger plan. Yeah, the fact that we still don't know this, and two of us, it's not made explicit, I think is a problem with the film. But I mean, as a piece of Hollywood spy thriller, even taking out the MCU connections and everything like that, I really, really enjoyed this. I did find, I think I mentioned it at the time, I think that some of the action was a little bit too close up, and it had that thing of
me.
It will have done. It has that problem that like Transformers films have, where it's just bodies hitting each other rather than actually being able to understand the intricacies of the fight sequences. I mean, is it Kit Shortland who's a director?
Yes, who I don't know. I was going to ask if you know her.
No, I don't, and she's not done action films before, so it might be something, might just be down to the director. I would have preferred something a little bit further out so that you can understand who's got the advantage in the fight, who's doing what, rather than
I did like the hand-to-hand combat that Elena and Black Widow had at the beginning, when they were essentially matching each other because they've been trained in the same style, and you can see the matching of the style. So whoever had choreographed the fight scenes did a really good job in matching the two of them together.
There's your phone again.
There's my phone.
But it was large. I mean, that was largely in the trailer, so that's kind of annoying. I'm quite glad that they didn't put very much of that in, very much of the film, sort of beyond the first act, in the trailer. But I'm really excited by this film. I really enjoyed it, and I'm really looking forward to the remainder of the MCU films this year. Do you want to go on to trailers?
Yeah, let's do it. Because you know what? We've been talking now for over half an hour about it. And you remember when we said we would do like 20 minutes or something as a revisit. One final thing that I just want to say is I really wish there was more... I'm going to rewind and start again. I felt that there was some... And I know why you said... I'm doing this really badly. I know why you said, let's start again. I know why you said back in the review a couple of weeks ago that I would really like this film, because it's a very female-focused film. It is very much about women, and also the removal of women's power, the control of women by powerful men. There's a certain scene that's about the removal of the reproductive organs, which we know about because in previous MCU films, Black Widow is saying to Hulk, for example, that she's not able to have children, and you do see a flashback of them performing a hysterectomy. So we know that that's there. I think there's been some criticism of the scene in this film about them sort of making light of that operation, but I didn't feel that way at all, because David Harbour's going, oh, have you got your period, which is a thing that a lot of teenage women get said to them quite a lot. I think
I didn't recommend it to you for that reason. I thought you would like it because it's a Bourne-esque thriller and stuff like that. I thought you might find that problematic, to be perfectly honest. I didn't, because I think she's being essentially a prick to him in return to his prick comments.
Oh, totally. And I think it's, when she's explaining what hysterectomy is, that's exactly, and from her point of view, that's exactly what they've done to her. Yeah. And I really recognise that when you have something that's really traumatic, you sometimes, when someone's being a real pain in the bum to you, if we get someone who's saying things about kids to us, and, you get that whole thing of...
I've told this story in the podcast before, where someone, had quite tough time in hospital, and a cleaner came along and started to make a conversation with me and wouldn't leave it alone, and then tried to ask if Blake's name was Henry's. To anyone who doesn't know, that's our son, Blake's twin brother, who died very early on. And I turned around and said, no, that's his brother who's dead.
Yes.
to make her go away.
And that's exactly what I felt with this, because I've seen criticism of this, of like, oh, it's making light of it, or it's making fun of it, and I didn't see that
in the
all.
slightest.
So to take it back to the round, I really enjoyed that focus on women and the abuse of power by men to, I really, really like that. But I did feel there were certain points, perhaps towards the end, where it was just a bit too on the nose,
Yes.
where the women are all gathering in a group and they're, we'll take care of her, and that's lovely, like, that's such a lovely sentiment. But there was a little bit into me that was going, that's a little bit cringe, possibly.
It's going
I don't know.
back to the we're the women in Avengers Endgame.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, when I went to saw Avengers Endgame, I was sat next to a group of girls who typically I would not expect to see in an MCU film, shall I say. And they were squealing whenever Captain Marvel came on. They squealed when that happened. So it's clearly working for some people.
Yeah.
I
wanted just to say
I
that
think it was a little
bit
bit heavy-handed, and I agree. And I would make so many changes to the third act of this, and that's one of them. Yeah.
Totally. Right. Carry on. What we talking about now? Trailers.
Yeah. Right. So what trailers did you have? Because I can't remember what trailers I had.
Let's see if I can remember, because I was really desperately trying to remember. Okay, the one that really springs to mind is the one about 10 rings. So there was something about 10 rings. I'm not going to say
Double Olympics?
No, you know what I mean?
Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
Shang-Chi and, yes, which only when it came up at the end with, like, what it was, because it did that thing of, it showed you the film, and then at the end it goes, Shang-Chi, the Legend of the Ten, and the logo comes up.
Yes.
Did I realise that it was, like, part of the MCU? Did I realise that I had heard of it?
Yes.
I wasn't that impressed by the trailer. I felt it was quite generic. And I don't know if it's just because I don't know the story and I wasn't really paying it much attention. Therefore, I thought it looked like a bit like a kid's film.
So,
do you know anything about it?
I know that the people I know who really read a lot of comic books have never, ever investigated Shang-Chi at all.
Right, okay. I thought you were going to say the people that you know that love comics really, really love this.
No. This is a really obscure Marvel comic, in the same way that Guardians of the Galaxy was. And do you know about the Ten Rings?
No.
You do, because the Ten Rings are the terrorist organisation from Iron Man 3. See earlier podcast that we watched together.
With the guy, like the Mandarin.
Yes.
Right. Okay, I would never have known that unless you had told me. Is it a very prominent thing in the? Do they mention the Ten Rings?
Yes. So
right.
When they're doing the, when they're doing the videos of, they're kind of doing videos that are mimicking kind of the videos from Al Qaeda and things like that in the film. They are branded as being from the Ten Rings.
Right. Okay.
So
are you gonna get Sir Ben Kingsley? Coming in this.
I don't know.
It didn't look like he was going to rock up, because I just didn't get that at all.
I really hope so, because I'd love that character, and I really hope to see him back in the MCU.
Is there someone, because they're getting a lot of women, like people who do indie films, women who do indie films, to direct these. Is this another example of someone coming in?
So this is Destin Daniel Cretton,
right,
who did Short Term 12.
Oh, did you like? Is that one that you liked? I can't remember.
I watched that quite recently. Yeah, it's really, really good. Did Just Mercy a couple of years ago, which is one that I didn't see, but Michael B. Jordan and Jamie Foxx, and also Brie Larson again. I think Brie Larson might have been the link between this person and because obviously it's someone who worked with him a lot, and I wonder if she's going to rock up in this because but as far as I know, I don't know anything about Shang-Chi. Yeah. I don't know much about comic books before they come out anyway.
Me neither. It didn't make me want to go and see it.
No.
Maybe I need to know a bit more about it.
But then we can't, on one hand, criticise, say, the Thor Ragnarok trailer for showing too much. And that's something you've seen recently on the Ghostbusters trailer.
Oh, yeah, it shows you way too much. Please beware, anyone who wants to watch Ghostbusters Afterlife. If you want to just, like, not know... I mean, you know, some trailers can give away some things, like, oh, who's going to be in it, and that sort of thing. But this gives you the entire film, and I was really, really disappointed.
So, I don't know anything about this film. I've seen the trailer. I've gone, okay, same as you did.
Yeah.
But I really like Destin Daniel Cretton.
Yeah.
I really like Aquafina, who's in it.
Yes, I spotted her. So
Yeah.
that, yeah, but she was only in it for like 2 seconds.
I really like Michelle Yeoh, who's in it.
Yeah,
I mean, who doesn't?
obviously, yeah.
So I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt. Absolutely.
So the one before that, I'm going backwards now to remember, there was a G.I. Joe film as well, which had the guy from...
Crazy Rich
what's it called?
Asians.
Yes.
Henry
that's
Golding.
it. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
I mean,
Can't think of anything today.
That's not his best role.
What's his best role?
Last Christmas.
Of course.
We did it for the podcast.
Yes, I know. I couldn't remember. Yes, I loved him in Last Christmas.
He was also in The Gentleman, the
Oh,
Guy
was it?
Ritchie
The
film.
Guy Ritchie, yeah. He's a very interesting action hero presence in this film. I was like, whoa, Henry Golding's going like super. He's a bit Bondy actually.
I've seen absolutely nothing about this, but I mean,
he'd make a great Bond.
well, that's what people are saying as
well,
well, isn't it? Yeah,
right,
yeah.
okay.
Sorry, that's not a hot take as you thought it was. Yeah.
But again, I didn't know what this film was about until the end, where it went something, a G.I. Joe story or something like that. I was like, I don't know G.I. Joe.
G.I. Joe wasn't really a thing
bothered.
around here.
No.
So it was called Action Force, and I think that was something a little bit different here.
Is
but
that Action Man?
No.
Right.
No. So G.I. Joe were little figures.
Right.
And then, but for some, because I guess kids in the UK in the 80s didn't know what a GI
What a
was.
GI, yeah.
So it was called Action Force. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure if it was the same characters or whether that was kind of like a little offshoot. And I think I've since done some reading, and I think that Action Force was integrated into G.I. Joe at some point. But yeah, I know nothing about it. I saw the first film that came out years ago with... Who did it have? Did it have Shia LaBeouf in?
Oh, well, Transformers was Shia LaBeouf.
Not Shia LaBeouf. I don't mean Shia LaBeouf.
Okay.
I mean Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
In the G.I. Joe film?
I'm pretty sure that happened. I'm going to have to look.
Really?
Yeah. G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra.
That's the new one.
Yeah. Yeah, Channing Tatum. No, that's the original one.
Oh, right.
And it's Channing Tatum, Sienna Miller, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Oh, I would never have thought that.
Yeah, and Marlon Wayans and Ray Park playing Snake Eyes.
Of course.
Yeah. That was awful, that film.
Okay.
There was a sequel which brought in Bruce Willis and The Rock. Because, of course, if your first film fails, bring in Bruce Willis and The Rock.
This feels like some sort of like dream sequence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, he looked great.
Yeah.
It looked fine. Again, I'm slightly put off because I think it would be something to take, like, maybe Blake to, our son, when he's a bit older. Like, obviously not now.
I think it's a
But
teen action film.
Yeah. So, yeah, fine. Then there was what I really want to call, and I remember trying to in the film in the cinema.
This is gonna be fun, isn't it?
I was trying to remember all these trailers, so I was like doing that thing where you run through them in your mind. Right, remember that one, and all the way through the trailer and afterwards until the word came up on the screen. I called this The Immortals. And when I wanted to talk to you about it now, I'm going, and then I saw the trailer for The Immortals. It's not The Immortals. I'm saying it in a slightly Geordie accent as well. Mortals. It's Eternals.
The Eternals, yes.
I'm never going to call it The Eternal. I don't even think it's The Eternals, is it?
No, it's just Eternals.
To me, it's The Immortals, which is going to drive everyone up the wall. But that's all I can think of. But anyway, I think they're immortal because they seem to last a long time through history. And they arrive...
3 a.m.
in an Independence Day type transport.
Yes.
In old times, let's say the days of yore, yesteryear, they're going. They're there. They're going to give the planet a little bit of a nudge to help them along, and they're there all the time in the shadows. It looks great. I have to say. I know I'm taking the mic. It looks great. It's Chloe Zhao, isn't it? It's Chloe Zhao. And that's the thing that's really pulling me towards it, alongside Angelina Jolie, who looks ethereal, and some other people who I really like Gemma Chan.
Salma Hayek.
Yeah, and the fella from Game of Thrones. I sound like an old woman, and you're like, you can't remember anything.
Well, I find it interesting
What's his name?
that this stars both Richard Madden and Kit Harington.
Thank you, yeah. I didn't see Kit Harington in the trailer.
Okay.
I only saw Richard Madden because obviously he has a line in it about him looking after the Avengers. He said, I could be the leader of the Avengers. Everyone laughs.
You got Barry Keoghan in there. You've got Camille Nanjiani, Brian Tyree Henry. I'm just going through the list. I mean, he's got a very good agent, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. I liked it. I liked the look of it. I liked the feel of it.
Yes.
There was the beginning of the trailer really reminded me, and everyone might roll their eyes at this, but really reminded me of Prometheus, in that sort of hero people of old. You know, the old people of the planet.
I'm not sure I want to know about this. I hope not.
Some alien comes along and gives them, and does something to the planet, sort of thing. Yeah. But anyway, it's got that sort of feel. At least I thought it had. Yeah, I like the look of it. I would like to see it.
Even like the secondary cast. I'm just flicking through IMDb as we're talking about this, but Lauren Ridloff, who's in the latest series of The Walking Dead, she is a deaf actress, who's been in a lot of things. I think she's in Sound of Metal as well, which we've had on our we need to watch this.
Watch that, yeah. We need to be in the right
pile
mood
for a long time.
Yeah.
But she's very, very good in The Walking Dead, and she's in it. So yeah, I'm really excited by this, despite seeing the trailer and going, well, I'll see how that goes as well. I think it's the same. I think I trust the MCU process, and it's interesting that I'm more excited about the directors that they're working with now than the actual cast and superheroes themselves, because they've used up all the big ones. Spider-Man was the last big name to come out, and so they've now got to scrape the barrel. And I mean, obviously they're going to introduce the Fantastic Four again for the third time in 15 years. They're going to introduce the X-Men again for the second time in our lifetime. Yeah. But they need to get some new superheroes on the board, having lost their franchise players, and I think I'm interested to see just how they do that in this film. We haven't talked about the post-credits sting.
Oh, we didn't do it. Oh, well, that's useful to put it at this end then.
Yes.
After we talked about the trailers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I waited for it because you warned me to. And the cinema did that really annoying thing of opening up the door.
Yeah.
Like the fire exit, you go out through the fire exit now. So you opened up the fire exit door and started cleaning up around me as well, and making loads and loads of noise and having a chat between themselves as well, because there were two ladies sort of tidying everything up and having a proper chat. And I'm thinking, and then I know the lights came on, and you have that feeling that everyone's waiting for me to go, waiting for me to go, but I just want to wait till the end, and the end just seems to be such a long way away. Anyway, most of the people left, but then there was a group of like parents with kids who then clocked on that I was sat there like a numpty by myself waiting, and then they were sort of asking the staff, look, is there anything they didn't know? But because I was sat there, they then went and sat in front of me on the seats in front and sort of just waited with me.
Was that row B or row A?
That was row A.
Okay, just
making sure. Is there a row A? Because sometimes there isn't. No, it would be, because there was two in front of me. Yes.
God.
Move on, Elaine. Move on. And then it eventually came up, and they did, bless them, they did then stop tidying at that point, and all the rustling behind me stopped. Wasn't the ending I thought it would be. I like the fact that they acknowledged that Black Widow was dead. I hated that bit where she did that whistling, and I thought, oh no, she's gonna Scarlett Johansson's gonna whistle back and walk out from behind a tree.
That was my worry as well.
Oh, and I think they've obviously done that on purpose. Yes. I'll whistle into the grave and see what comes back at you. I mean, it's because we've watched Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We know that Elaine from what's the thing? Seinfeld, thank you. Elaine from Seinfeld has rocked up in there to talk to Kurt Russell's son.
Yes.
I'm brilliant with names today. So I know, and I don't know she's called Valentina until Florence Pugh says, oh, Valentina, blah, blah, blah. I realise that that's setting up that she is almost like got a shadow organisation of people who might be thought of as wrong-uns to go and, oh,
they're all wrong-uns,
no, yeah. You mean like the Suicide Squad, it's the alternative, isn't it, to the goodies. And that she's now saying, look, here's Clint for the 50th time mentioned in the film. Here's Clint.
Was this the point where you realised who...
Yeah, probably. Here he is.
You went, oh.
Are they setting up, you'll know more about this than me, are they setting up the Hawkeye TV show?
Yes.
Right, okay. So is she going to be in the Hawkeye TV show then?
She hasn't been announced.
Right.
But I think that's what they are leading up to.
And I think there is clearly a step to she fights him. They come to a conclusion that everything is, that they're all right. Come to a truce, and then she joins as an Avenger, clearly as the Black Widow character.
So what do you know about the Hawkeye TV show?
I know that is Haley Steinfeld in it.
Yes.
And is she meant to be his daughter who takes on the Hawkeye?
Not his daughter, but his protege.
Okay, that's essentially it. Because I know in Endgame, wasn't he teaching one of his children to do the bow and arrow thing before they disappeared? Or in Infinity War, whatever.
Yeah, Endgame.
Sorry, just like, whatever. I was a bit dismissive of me, but like one of those films. Yeah, so I kind of know they're setting up the idea that Clint will retire, or like it's like the X-Men again, isn't it? It's like, oh, you're going to have, the Storm is a teacher and she's teaching Jean Grey and all of that sort of
Storm
stuff.
would never
Oh, no,
teach
not
Jean
teaching
Grey.
Grey. No, she isn't teaching. Am I thinking about
She teach Rogue or Jubilee.
That's it, yes, that's
Kitty
what
Pryde.
I mean. That's what I mean. Where is my head at? I don't know. It's too much. There's too many superheroes and too many. Like my head's all mashed up with Eternals and all the other trailers as well. It's very confusing for me. It's
Yes, apparently so.
Maybe I need a spreadsheet or something.
I encourage that massively.
Fine is what my reaction to it was. Did I really need to stay at the end to watch it? Well,
Yes.
It sort of sets up the next thing, but could I have found it on YouTube? Probably.
Oh, God.
And also by that point, I had needed to go to the loo for 2 hours. Because how I said at the beginning of this podcast, I got myself all set up. I realised I hadn't got the loo. And I did have that thing of being really uncomfortable throughout most of this film. But to kind of show how much I liked it, I didn't want to leave and go and then come back again and miss something.
That's just bad management.
Thanks.
I've only ever had to leave a cinema twice to go to the loo.
Well, you're a man.
But that was 30 Days of Night. You ever seen that?
Okay, I think so.
Oh, I hated that.
I think so. Is one about the vampires?
Yeah, and that was and then Captain Marvel the second time watching it.
Oh, that's fair enough.
But because me and Jim
keen.
went to the pub beforehand, and so I was
That's
by the time.
your own fault, isn't
Yes.
it? That's your own fault. Right, now we're way beyond what we said we would do with this. We're almost at an hour. We're almost at an hour. That is ridiculous. But it just goes to show you,
We'll just fire off a quick podcast then.
Yeah, we'll just do a quick one. Thanks very much, everyone, for listening. If you've got to this stage, well done.
Yeah.
Get a gold badge.
Please get in touch and we'll laud you with praise for getting this far.
So yeah, let us know if you thought Black Widow was as good as we did. We were giving it 5 stars, but I know it's had some mixed reviews out there.
4 stars, not 5.
Did we? Oh, did I say 5 stars?
You said 5 just
I meant to say 4. 4. I'll take away a star. Yeah, we've given it 4 stars, both of us, and we really enjoyed it. Albeit problems with the third act, problems with some plotting. Let us know what you thought of it, because we have seen mixed reviews, and it'd be really interesting to hear what you think.
And I've actually heard people say the beginning's rubbish, but the end's great. So clearly it's down to the person.
Let us know what you think. You can find us on Twitter or Instagram at The Honeymoon Pod.
And if you'd like to drop us a review, we would really appreciate it.
Thanks very much, everyone, and we'll be back shortly, probably with a main show, I think.
Main show,
Talk about TV and more films.
We've got a lot to talk about.
We have.
See you later.
Bye.